Get ready for an unfair advantage over your competition. This is the Sales Edge podcast, where globally recognized sales expert and trainer Joe Pici helps you sharpen your skills for booking more appointments and closing more deals. And now, here's your host, Joe Pici.
Welcome back to the Sales Edge. This is Joe Pici, and we're excited to have you back. This is episode number 35 in our continuance of the strength, the hows, the whys, the wherefores of building successful teams in sales and in business. Sales Edge is focused on you. It's focusing on giving you content. It's focusing on helping you get that competitive edge, get better at what you do, maybe assess what you do, maybe finding out the things you want to get better at, and then moving forward in that way. Sales Edge is sponsored by Pici and Pici, which is a training, consulting, coaching, and speaking business. We're specializing in sales teams, really helping professional speakers, trainers, and coaches monetize what they do. So if I had to really look right down at what Pici and Pici did, they specialize in helping people grow, be more productive, and gain more clients. We want to make sure you know that I am available to you. You know, if you ever have a question or want a complimentary cup of Joe, give me a call at 407-947-2590. Also, we want your questions. We want ideas from you of what you'd like to hear about. You can email me at joe@piciandpici.com and just in the tag put Sales Edge so I know what format you're dealing with, who you want to talk to, what you want to talk about, maybe topics in the upcoming months and years, maybe questions you want greater clarification on. So today on the Sales Edge, we're going to take another step in the whole idea. We have been working through a series on building great sales teams, building great business teams. And I've been doing some homework, doing some research with some of our clients that have done this, have experienced it. In the future, we will be having guests on our show, and some of the people I talked to you about will be our guest. Today, I got some real insight from he started out as a client. You know, a couple years ago, I picked up the phone and I called Butch in South Carolina, and before you knew it, Butch became a client, and now he's a client/friend, and he's an expert. He's out of South Carolina. He has literally built athletic teams, but then business teams his whole life. And Butch has a great insight for us today. And so I'm going to give you some ideas, some of the challenges on building great teams. That's what I asked him. I said, Butch, you've been a team builder your whole life. What did you see when you walked into an environment as some of the challenges that you would be facing and that you faced? You know, and Butch says, and here's a quote from Butch, you know, building great teams is not that complicated. However, it's hard. The reason it's hard is it requires intention, high standards, and consistency. A business can be successful without these traits, but they can never be wildly successful. And, you know, Butch and I share a common problem. We decided not to be good, but seek to be great. We decided if we were going to do something, we wanted to play at the elite level. We wanted to always do more. And so I really wanted to dig into this man's mind and find out what he saw as 6 or 7 challenges that would inhibit being successful in building teams. Number 1 was intentional culture versus default culture. And what Butch says there is that an intentional culture are thoughts about with an idea in mind. Your idea and your ideals need to be front and center, clearly defined and consistently communicated. Wow. It's inspiration, aspiration, accountability is a great part of your culture. In building a culture, it's hard. It also takes a long time. It's really funny because I get into companies and they talk about, we'd like to change our culture, and I said, well, I'll say to them, well, okay, so what do you want this to look like? And when you start mapping out the steps in changing a culture, I'm going to give you a Joeism here. This is a Joeism. This does not mean it's yourism. I believe you establish, create, define a culture from the top. However, I believe when you're starting a culture change in a company, in a sales team, a lot of times you'll begin it from the bottom. What does that mean? Many times I go into companies, they want to change the culture. They want to change how their clients view them, because ultimately that's my definition of culture. How your clients view you. And they have all these great ideas. And when I really hone it down as to the things that I can do, because you got to get people's attention, I will start out in the basement with the field team, the ones that are responsible for growth and productivity, and I'll start doing some intense training to start to move the needle. And as the smoke rises, then all of the beliefs and inspiration and aspirations that leadership has, there'll be more buy-in. And so that's just the way I look at culture building. Now let's talk about number 2 from Butch. Lack of vision, lack of purpose, and lack of core values. In other words, what does your company stand for? How are you making a difference in the world of the attraction of the millennial culture? And I don't put a big difference on any age group. I work with all age groups. I have no problem working with all age groups. But I will tell you, as the millennials become one of the largest part of the workforce, your company better be making a difference, because they're concerned about that. They want to know, are we making a difference? What is a commitment to our purpose? Is it higher than themselves? Are we making a difference in our community? Are we making a difference in the country? Are we making a difference in families? This is important to them, and are you conveying this? They need to be part of this. They need to buy into your vision, your purpose, and your core values, which means you better have a vision, and you better have a purpose, and you better have core values. It's not just about selling the widget. Now let's talk about number 3. Number 3, the challenge in building teams is time. It takes time to build a great team. The whole instituting of what you want to accomplish and how you want to accomplish, it's really important that you give yourself time and you have time blocks to measure it. Number 4 and number 5, I'm going to combine those because this has to do with the management through and from fear. Management's training and their habits, their practices, they're influenced by environmental conditions. More times than not, there are bad habits. And so when you look at managing through fear, are you managing your team with the idea of, if you don't, we will X? Are you stating ultimatums? It's very hard to build cohesive teams if people are afraid. Now, I'm not talking about lack of accountability. No, not at all. I'm talking about helping people to understand they're part of a team here and the mission is clear, and they don't need to be afraid if they don't close that deal on Friday. Now, part of the fear factor, now let's turn it. Let's turn it. And this has to do with, and I've said this in the past, whenever you have a top producer and their habits and their attitudes are being tolerated because they're your top producer. So they come late. They don't get their paperwork done. You know, they're out of there at 2 o'clock on Friday. Their habits, the way they run their life, because they're a top producer, they think they get a pass. Now you look at professional college sports, high school sports, little league sports. Are we treating that quote-unquote star differently than the non-stars? This is cancer. This will kill your team. This is what I call a negative producer, according to Butch. He calls them a negative producer. You know, they may get their numbers, but by the same token, they're eating at the fiber. Listen, they're eating at the very fiber of your team concept. You know, team supersedes individual. And because in the 21st century, you know, you turn on the TV and there's that great athlete that is allowed to do things the other guys aren't allowed to do. And it works for the short term. You know, I did a thing on why the Eagles and why the Patriots won back, you know, the Super Bowl. And I will say, let's talk about the Patriots. There's really no star power on that team. I've watched over the course of 10 years Belichick get more out of less, and if he gets a head case, they're soon gone. They're off the radar. They don't have that microphone in their face holding court, you know, as to what's wrong with the program. He doesn't tolerate it. And so every individual on that team feels like they are an important cog, an important factor. Let's go to the next one. This is the inconsistent or lack of processes. A lack of process really erodes a culture. And, you know, when Butch and I talk about this, and we talk usually about 6 o'clock in the morning, he's on his walk, and we're talking about the importance of building great processes and how important that is to your team culture. Now, I want to get to the last one. And Butch calls it a lack of leadership EQ. Now, we were talking, and EQ is also EI, emotional intelligence. Now, I went and I found a definition. The ability to accurately perceive your own and others' emotions, to understand the signals that emotions send about relationships, and to manage your own and others' emotions. Wow. We're not talking about closing that deal on Friday. Closing the deal on Friday is a natural progression to great processes, great culture, great skills. But how about how we handle individual people? How about how we handle ourselves? So let's talk about a few things that encapsulate, that's a good word, huh? Encapsulate what emotional intelligence, or as Butch calls it, EQ, what it really is. Number one is self-awareness. Self-awareness is the conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. So in other words, before I can lead a team, do I know what drives me? Do I know about my own character? Do I know about my own feelings? Do I know about my motives? Why do I want what I want? Why do I want us to perform at a certain level? What are my desires? Self-awareness is tough. The day you hold up the mirror in front of you, sometimes we don't like what we see. And so self-awareness is a very important cog in emotional intelligence. The second one of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. This is business organization controlled by itself. Now listen, business organization controlled by itself. In other words, if you put the right culture, the right processes in place, then the organization can self-regulate. In other words, you as the builder and leader of this team don't have to be there all the time because it regulates itself because you've put all these processes in place. This is very important. The next one is motivation. So the third aspect of emotional intelligence. This is something that induces movement to accomplish something. In other words, there can be negative motivation, there can be positive motivation. But motivation is something that acts as a catalyst to move things. For example, some people are more into external motivation, okay? The sales manager has to put the prize on the board and prod people and keep that in front of them. Some people are more self-motivated. At the end of the day, motivation is motivation. What helps things move? As a team builder, and that's what I call you, a team builder. Some people call them leaders. Some people call them managers. Some people call them coaches. As a team builder, you have to know what motivates your team and your individuals. The next one is empathy. That's understanding, being aware of the other person's situation and mindset. I didn't say sympathy. I said empathy, whereby you're putting yourself in another person's shoes. You're gaining greater understanding as to why they do what they do, why they're a moment late, why they're a moment early. Empathy is really understanding how a person sees losing a deal, getting a perspective on how they see failure, success. This is a very important aspect of emotional intelligence. And the last one is social skills. Skills that allow a person, to act appropriately in social context. In other words, we all have social skills. And so great social skills allow you to act appropriately when you're dealing in a social environment. So here's 3 steps I want to give you in improving our emotional intelligence, or as Butch says, EQ. Number 1, slow down. Respond instead of react. The team hasn't hit the numbers you want them to hit. The team is not functioning as well. Individuals on the team are not functioning the way you want to. You can react and go off and start yelling and hollering and throwing things or whatever, or you can respond. You can slow down the game and be aware, see how you can motivate, be more empathetic, and execute better social skills. Number 2, listen with the true intent of understanding. So when someone on the team or the team is making a suggestion, instead of saying, we don't do that here, you can entertain an outside idea without executing it. And you'll still get great feedback from your people. You want to have that open door. Now, I don't mean your door needs to be open 24/7. I mean, when people need to be working, they need to be working. But you can have an open door policy where people are not afraid to come in and make a suggestion. But you need to listen with true intent. And number 3, be open-minded. Be willing to entertain ideas and changes. So today, we thank Butch. We really appreciate Butch. We're becoming closer and closer friends. He's establishing himself as an expert. I'm going to get information out there for you because he's created a unique company assessment on productivity. And but we certainly appreciate him, and we're going to have him on the show soon. But as we wrap this up, I'd like to just tell you that We're excited about this whole facet of team building. We're excited about helping you take yourself and your team to another level. Once again, here's a free download for you. Take out your phone and text this number, 55678, and in the message, put Sales Edge. And when you hit that, it's going to take you to a link, which will take you to a landing page. On that landing page, folks, you will have some free download assessments. One is Dawn on LinkedIn. One is Sales by me. And also on the bottom of that, there's links to our podcast. So please feel free to send this out to your team, your inner circle. And we're excited. And please send in your questions. You know, we're excited about what we're doing here, and we're beginning to get around the globe, and we're getting tremendous buy-in from this. And I'm being invited into other people's podcasts where I'm going to be promoting their podcast. Hopefully this has been a great value to you as you build your team. And this has been episode number 35. And so stay tuned because number 36 is coming. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. New episodes will air each Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. The Sales Edge is sponsored by Pici and Pici Incorporated, a firm which provides training, consulting, and keynote presentations, empowering corporations and individuals to attract and retain quality clients for higher revenues and growth. Make more money in sales. Speak with Joe in person by calling 407-947-2590 or visit www.piciandpici.com. Spelled PICIAND, PICI.com.